Joined now by Dennis Bernstein and Shane Kelly. I'm Irfaan Gaffar with the fourth period. And this segment, guys, we love to do it. It's called Dirty Data. We get into the numbers. We do all sorts of stuff when it comes to that. So let's start with the Wild. Shane. The Minnesota Wild just gave Matt Boldy a 7-year extension at $49 million. What say you and the numbers?
The numbers don't love it. I get betting on potential and, the idea that the market is independent of the numbers a lot of the time. You're looking at he's 21. If we lock him up for 7 years, we obviously have to give a bid on the AAV in order to do that. And you're betting a lot on potential. But the problem with this deal is that there's nothing in the data that I can point to really that says that, Boldy is a $7 million winger. Like, you need to be incredible offensively in this league, in my mind, to be a $7 million winger. If I'm Cole Caulfield right now, I am dancing in the streets because to me,
Sure.
my floor just went up by $1 million, if not more. Boldy is a very good skater. He's one of the fastest players in the league. He's decent at transitioning the puck, so generating offense off of carrying the puck in, but not great. His possession numbers are middling. They're below average on a team that tends to possess the puck a little bit more than 50% of the time. He gives up a fair amount in transition the other way. So to me, I kind of turn around and go, why?
Well, part of the reason why is that the guy who also got seven per plus a year is in Los Angeles with me, Kevin Fiala. Now, I don't think it's a direct line because Kevin Fiala is going to be 27 in July. Shane mentioned that he's going to be 21, so there's 6 years difference. But they have to keep some guys in place, and I think what this does is, and you saw it today with the healthy scratching of Matt Dumba. Like that money's going to Matt Boldy. Now, does it work for 7 years? I don't know. But I think it's in response to, okay, we just lost a big-time player, a big-time point producer because of that cap situation with respect to the buyouts of Parisi and Suter. I think you got to keep guys at home. This is a homegrown guy who, like Shane says, shows potential. But the body of work deem a 7-year deal for $49 million? It doesn't, but these are bets that general managers take.
DB, when you look at this team and in the division that they're in, you got the Jets, you got the Stars, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have the Wild. Is this team a piece or two away from competing? And should they do that heading into this postseason, or should they try and build and try and make it for a couple years down the road?
You know what the problem with this team is? They're always a piece or two away. They never get over, and they're a nice team. I wouldn't be afraid of playing them in the playoffs. Now Gustafson's their number one goalie, and Fleury hasn't been great, so they can add pieces. But again, when you look at that buyout situation with the Caps, are you really going to commit to more money? This is the one big bet they're making. I question how many big bets Billy Guerin can make in the next season and a half because of the cap situation with that buyout. So yeah, they're close, and I think the one thing that opens up the field for all these teams in the Central is Colorado. Like, how healthy is Colorado going to be? Are they ever going to be healthy? Are they going to be healthy with 10 games left and they're out by 4 or 6 points and they have to make up ground? It looks like they're getting better. But I think what happens in the West, and it's not just the Central guys, I think there's going to be a team that looks at Colorado and says, okay, not only the injuries, but they never replaced Dallas Kadri. Newhook's not the guy. JT Comfort's not the guy. So there's going to be a team in the West that's going to take a big swing and say, if I make this big swing, GM's going to say, I can get out of the West and get to a Stanley Cup final.
One more thing on Boldy here. One question I have back, and I know I just need to ask you this: why now? Why not wait till the end of the year? I can't see the contract getting any larger if you give him a little more
Right,
time
that's true.
to see if he can improve some of these underlying numbers. The Wild have access to a lot of the same data that I do, so they should be seeing that. Okay, there's some flags here. Let's just wait. But on the Wild as a whole, to me, this is one of those teams. It's a perfect example of a team that gets stuck in the mushy middle, right? They're never bad enough to get a top 3 pick, but they're also never good enough really to say, okay, we can seriously consider ourselves a cup contender if we add one more piece at the deadline. Like you look at a Tampa, for example, they don't bring in superstars every year to juice their production for the postseason. They bring in a solid third line player because that's all they need. There aren't that many superstars around at the deadline that you can acquire because teams with superstars are usually pretty good, right? So, to me, if you're sitting here and you're asking yourself, is there a piece we can bring in that's going to turn us into an absolute cup contender? There might be one, and it's Meyer, but after him, I would say there isn't. So if that's the situation you find yourself in, I think you're better off to try to take a step back or just bide your time. They're a pretty young group still, and there's nothing wrong with doing nothing sometimes.
DB, one final one for me. Actually, both of you can answer this. You mentioned the healthy scratch of Matthew Dumba. Dennis, should a team be taking a swing at Matthew Dumba? And Shane, is it worth the risk if they do? DB, we'll start with you.
They should be taking a swing if he's available. That's a perfect deadline acquisition. He's going to help a defense without question. He's not getting along with Evanson. He's not getting the performance that he gets out of the player. So that's one of the only tools you have is ice time. And they made the decision in the midst of a player front to scratch this player. So, but it would be incumbent upon the scouts to sit in press row next to me and all the other buildings to really drill down on Matt Dumba and see what are the whys for the scratching other than the obvious statistics at this point.
If the price is right on an expiring contract, absolutely. Take a roll of the dice. There's nothing really to lose. Go for it.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for this. The Minnesota Wild are going to be a very interesting team over the next couple of months. So we'll see what happens. Maybe some guys coming in, maybe some guys leaving, but it should be some very interesting times down in Minnesota.